You're listening to Arsenal Pass, a flesh and blood podcast for players by players, and all about strategy, leveling up, and the latest news in the world of Wraith. Welcome to Arsenal Pass.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 149 of Arsenal Pass. We are off the back of a weekend of Prism winning a battle hard. I think that was probably the last thing I had on my bingo card. Remember Brian Gottlieb, the most opportunistic tweeter of all time. No, I love Brian, but he does tweet out the Prism face after it does well in the battle hard. Everything is planned, as they say. I quickly replied with a copium tweet, but it might be real, to be honest. It legitimately might be real. I have to say that I just don't know yet. I don't know. I'm testing legitimately right after this podcast, and I don't feel comfortable being like, it is real or it isn't real. I am super interested to know more about the Kayo matchup, because currently the Kayo matchup is bottlenecking all of the other aspects of testing. Like every single deck goes through that filter first. Can we beat Kayo? 100%. Actually, not even. Do we have a good matchup in the Kayo? Because if we don't have a good matchup in the Kayo, the deck is dead.
Well, we're going to talk about this rapidly evolving class constructor format because there's quite a few really interesting things that came out of the Battle Hardened on the weekend. There was also an event in California, I think, like a grassroots event with some interesting results, but including a Tekla Vossen in top 8. But I'm really excited to talk about this Battle Hardened. This is week 2, or I guess week 3 of limited when it comes to heavy hitters, and Road to National starts this weekend as well. So we're really going to start to see, that mass amount of data come through, Brendan, in terms of what is happening in this classic constructive format. But I think you're right. Like, just to preview it a little bit, I don't think anything has changed in regards to Kayo being that kind of litmus test for where you start with your testing, but results might kind of say otherwise. So we'll talk about that when we get into the pod. Also, I'm going to share some vindication when it comes to Prism in the comments, but we'll get there. Do you want to talk about your week in Flesh and Blood?
Yeah, it's just testing. I'm currently going through an existential crisis right now in regards to why people are still playing Bravo when Victor exists.
We'll also get onto that, won't we? Because
I also and then Bravo as a pick into a KO meta, because I think that Victor is probably not the best pick into a KO meta, but it's a double whammy. It's like I feel like Victor is almost objectively better than Bravo, and I feel like Victor doesn't have a great matchup. So is Bravo having a better KO matchup? I don't know. I don't think so, but probably a little bit because of the disruption. But nevertheless, it's like, I don't think that Guardian really passes the test against KO yet, but it could be a deck building issue. I also, 3 whammies. I'm also weighing up, it's like, are some of these Victor decks just really bad because it's early in the meta? I hesitate to believe that anymore because Flesh and Blood deck building.
I've seen the list as well.
Yeah, the Flesh and Blood deck building and just player skill is so advanced at this point. But yeah, Victor had a terrible conversion rate.
Yeah, we'll also get onto that. How are you feeling? It's not like you haven't been a part of this process in a long time, but this is basically a year, longer than a year since you've been a part of this process as someone who's going to compete at a pro tour. So how are you feeling about it? Like, are you enjoying it? Are you excited? Like, what's kind of, you're basically 2 weeks in now, or a week in at this point, week and a half in?
I am not enjoying it, to be completely honest, because it's just a lot different now. Like the tools that people have access to allow them to play games at a much more rapid rate, and the quantity of games is much higher. I think the players are better, which is fine. That's expected as any TCG sort of ages. But the process in and of itself it's a lot. It might change in person, right? So Sasha's coming over. Sasha's coming to Texas like 2+ weeks before the pro tour. I believe like Hamilton, Fang, Brody. Brody lives near me, so they're all going to be in the area. So I'm sure we're going to get some like good drafts and some good testing in. And the in-person testing is really what I enjoy. But right now, it's kind of a grind. At the same time, I'm not super into just jamming like a million drafts online. It's like not my thing at all. I prefer to, if I am going to play online, I prefer to focus on the CC testing. So right now, to answer your question, I wouldn't describe the process as enjoyable, but I don't know. It's one of those things. It's like, if you ever do a physical activity that's like very hard and it sucks ass, But then after you're like, I did that.
You feel so good. Yeah.
Maybe that will happen.
The gratification.
Maybe that will happen with this. But that's kind of what it feels like.
Interesting. I've really been my process is I've gone back to a process that I think I followed for Worlds last year. So not Barcelona Worlds, but San Jose Worlds. So 2022, and I'm enjoying it quite a lot. And I think it's, for me, focusing on really the quality of games as opposed to the volume of games has been my big focus. So definitely been testing this week, but I'm like 30 games in total on Classic Constructed over the past 3 weeks, basically. And that feels okay to me, honestly. Like, I feel like when I play a game, so of an evening, I'll play, say, 1 to 2 games, and I'm really focused on getting as much as possible out of the game. Like, I come in with really fixed targets. I want to play this matchup. Afterwards, I'll discuss it generally I'm testing with Dan. We'll discuss it afterwards, and then I'll make notes. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I've achieved a lot in that kind of 70 minutes or 80 minutes or whatever with my 2 games in the discussion. So, and then when it comes to draft, I did a draft camp the other week, which I talked about on the pod last week, which I freaking loved. Dude, I love getting 8 dudes around a table, get some cards, get some packs down, and just drafting, okay, eight people. Everyone is obviously welcome at my draft table. But what I mean is, it just feels like, I don't know, it feels like you get your mates around a table and you draft, you have a great time, you eat. Your boy Tom Dowling cooked up a feed for us when we were at his house the other week. And I love that. I did an online draft this week, and it was fine. It was fine. I did it, whatever. And I learned, I think the amount of reps people get, people got hundreds of drafts in, and some of my friends have done this, and a lot of those reps are valuable. Some of them are not, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, my testing sort of schedule and cadence is pretty similar to yours. I'm not grinding.
You're doing a lot of watching.
Well, yeah, I watch at night, like passively while I'm doing other stuff. So it's not even very active, to be honest. Like I'm honestly more there for the banter than for the gameplay. But Sasha and I play like 1 hour a day, 1 to 2 hours a day. The only issue is that, sometimes we end up just like talking about stuff that's not Flesh and Blood, or we're like, there's like the Altered TCG came out. We're like, okay, we'll go try it. And yeah, it's just, it's a tough process right now, to be honest. Like, it's not overbearing, but I'm not feeling as confident, and I don't feel as passionate as I did in the past for like, oh, the Pro Tour's coming up, we got to do everything we can to win. It's just like trying to figure out where we are in the metagame, like trying to orient, because it's very much in flux right now. And then just like, what is the 80-20 for all the bingo card holders out there? What's the 80-20 of the class constructed deck we can pick and the amount of drafts we can get in to where we're just competent enough to put ourselves in a position to get lucky and do well? Because I think most card games, you have to be a good player and you have to get lucky on the day if you want to win.
100%.
But Flesh and Blood is a game where that is the less of the case. So I want to get proficient enough to where I can, also get lucky and be good enough at the same time to do well at a tournament. So yeah, it's a process.
Pro Tours are awesome. I just want to preface what I'm about to say with that. Pro Tours are awesome. The experience is phenomenal. I've loved every event I've gone to so far, for the most part, and really enjoyed kind of for the most part. And I've enjoyed the kind of like, the few days leading up to it, the time spent with friends is like awesome. It's such an experience. It's interesting as I head towards like LA, and this will be I miss Baltimore, so whatever that means, Pro Tour 4 or 5 of this level. It really does start to just become an event, and the experience is still great, and I think as you do more of these, like the anticipation, the nerves, the things like those start to go away, and it's like you show up, you play the event, you still have a good time, but it's it's less of a journey, I guess, than it was for the first 4 or 5 times. But don't get me wrong, I still love it. And I think especially, if anyone's heading to their first Pro Tour this time, or their first calling, or maybe this is even your first Road to National season, like, just my advice is always just enjoy the journey and the process, because it's such an awesome thing, especially experiencing. When you read a book for the first time and you're like, wow, I wish I could read that book again for the first time. That's what it's like going to, your first Pro Tour, your first calling, or something like that.
For sure.
100%. It was phenomenal.
Cannot recapture that experience. Yeah. It's funny. I think my approach to competing in Flesh and Blood and like going to PTLA and competing in PTLA is like very apathetic, but apathetic in not necessarily the bad way. I remember Sasha in the lead, because he wasn't planning to go to PTLA, and he's just like,
I knew he was going to come.
Yeah, well, he's like doing this argument. He's like, do you even really want to do this? Like, I mean, it's just like, for me, I literally don't think about it like that. I'm just like, dude, this is just what we do. Like, there's 3 tournaments a year. we compete. We play this game. It's like, there's not like, do I like the format? It doesn't matter. It's just like, this is what we do. Like, this is our process. We test like 1 or so hour a day. We get a week or two, in-person testing before, ideally, and then we compete at these events. It's like, I don't really ask myself the question of, do I enjoy every aspect of this experience right now? Because it's just irrelevant to me. And I think that's because I look at it more like I know that in 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 years, if I look back on my life and it's full of traveling the world with my friends and playing pro tours, it's going to be infinitely better than me deciding to sit at home on my ass and play whatever video game was fun that week. It just is. It's a better life experience. And ultimately these pro tours, they are that. Like, there is the competition aspect, there is the tournament, but like at the same time, like, this is your life, you know. That's like looking back at the past 3 to 4 years. I mean, this is going way too far.
I was going to say, we're going to get off our soapboxes in a second.
Yeah, but like looking past like the last 3 or 4 years of our life with Flesh and Blood, I wouldn't define it by the individual tournaments. I'd define it by the entirety of the experience, and that it has been amazing. So I try. That's how I look at it. I feel like it's both apathetic in a good way and a bad way, but we just are competitors. We just compete at these tournaments, and there's no questions of like, do I really like it? Do I want to draft? Doesn't matter.
I feel a little bit differently, but that's okay. I fully understand the standpoint, and I agree with most of Brendan's sentiments. And also, if you are going to get the opportunity to go to one of these events, just do it, because it's actually amazing. All right, let's get on to the news. Testing's going well, though. I mean, well, testing's going well. Is that the testing's going fair? Yeah. I would say. I'm feeling like, you know, there's like a 60% chance I'd just be like, I'm playing Reiner, whatever. That's definitely what I've been playing.
Like, it's I don't know what to do at this point, because I really don't want to play Kayo, but we were in the classic testing phase where I'm getting very I'm getting the polar opposite opinions from like good players on how matchups go. Yeah. And that's the most annoying part of the testing process. Someone says it's like, yeah, no problem. The other player's like, it's unwinnable. And it's like, well, shit. It's very disorienting, to be honest.
It's hard as well to keep up with all the information, especially with people on different time zones. Let's get into the news. Calling Liverpool. Congrats to Francisco Giorgio drafting Kasai in top 8 and taking down the Heavy Hitters Limited calling in the UK. Our third Heavy Hitters Limited and final, right? This is our final limited calling for the season. We head into Road to Nationals this weekend, and then PTLA is literally 5 weeks away, Brendan, which is pretty crazy. On the back of that, Worlds 2022 top 8er Rob Catton on Prism took down the Battle Hardened, as you kind of mentioned at the top of the show. We're going to talk more about that. Road to Nationals, of course, starts this weekend. A couple of videos up on Arsenal Pass. We've got limited time only. Season 2 is kicked off, and Brendan, not me or you, but we've drafted in a limited pro, former number 1 ranked Elo. He kind of dropped a little bit at Worlds, but we don't hold that against him. Juha Sainilampe from Finland, who is just, he he's in our Discord, right? And he is a thinker when it comes to limited, right? Like, he's very big on kind of the back end and understanding the theory, and I think he articulates it really well. So if you haven't already, go check out that episode. It dropped about 2 days ago. By the time this pod drops, I think Juha does an awesome job, and he's got a couple more episodes coming, which are going to dive into each of the heroes and archetypes in Heavy Hitters draft. So make sure you check that out.
Thank God. I know in lead up to Pro Tour Baltimore, I was consuming limited tide only, but I need that resource. Like that's solid resource of information when it comes to limited format. Yeah. So I don't have to do 100 drafts, because I don't want to do 100 drafts, to be honest. So I'm really happy that it came back, because I'm a fan of limited title only.
Look, and like a bit of backstory for those who are listening, people might be thinking, why Juha? Why not one of us? And I've really enjoyed making limited content. It's my favorite thing. On that note, actually, for our patrons, there's a draft walkthrough up on Patreon that I threw up yesterday that was from my draft camp. Dr. Dan Mackay jumped on, and we did a bit of a draft review of one of my drafts, drafting one of my favorite heroes in the set. Spoiler, it's Olympia. So if you want to know how to draft Olympia, I'd go check that out. But the reason for Juha, honestly, is like Juha was really keen to make some content, and I think he's an awesome player. He's one of the best in the world, I think, and he has a great limited mind. So I wanted to give him a platform and have him take over limited time only, because I also didn't think I'd be able to do it this season. So yeah, we'll still be talking limited. We're going to talk limited a little bit briefly in a second, but yeah, go check it out. Let's get to Commander Cookout. We've got YouTube comment section this time, Brendan, and I'm going to kick it off this week. So we've got Lodgerman7306. If you're an illusionist player, I think you could play Prism. That's a quote from me last week. And then it's Lord German. I know who this is. I know this person. They're from my locals. It's Lord German 7306. They say, quote, if you're an illusionist player, I think you could play Prism. That is what I said last week. That is true. And then they go on to say, said after a whole pod spent talking about the impact Brute had on the format. Wow, who's got egg on their face, Lord German? I did say last week that Prism could be a great shout for Road to Nationals. And just sit here and feel good about myself.
How's the Brute match?
It's irrelevant. Anyway, let's move on.
Is it actually bad? Okay, we'll get back to it, but shit.
We'll come back to it.
Okay.
The next comment is from Hakai14. While I believe it's a blessing to have people like Michael and Brody casting games, you need like one person to be the said color commentator. Otherwise, we're watching a 45-minute math evaluation TED Talk. Look, I think the cast had that.
I felt like they did it.
This is in reference to Hartford.
Yeah,
you don't think like no. You feel like it didn't have that color?
No, I felt like it did. So I'm saying I felt like because they were on together. Oh yeah, they were on together. I felt like they were doing that, to be honest. Because I agree with this. I agree with this comment in theory, but I felt like actual how it actually played out is like felt like it was there. One thing I'll say, and I'm not referring to anybody or any cast. So screw you if you're trying to pin me or something. It's I'm on the super extreme end. The super extreme end when it comes to what I enjoy when it comes to a cast and production. I hate the goofy shit. I cannot stand it. The perfect kind of cast for me is like the OG Magic Pro Tours that are like very professional. Not that they're
Randy Bueller, Brian David Marshall.
Yeah, not that they're all analytics, but they're just like they're very professional and like very sort of like they're well presented. That's what I like, and I think that I'm an outlier there, but like. I cannot stand like goofy stuff on the cast. Like it just takes me out of it.
I don't mind a little bit, but I am with you as well. I really like a well-produced professional cast. And I've watched, I think we talked about this before. I watch a lot of old Magic casts back every now and again. I go through phases, especially when I'm like on holiday or like traveling that's not game related. I'll like pop on an old Pro Tour or something on the plane. And I really enjoy it. And like Randy Bueller, Brian David Marshall, Magic the Gathering former casters, look, they're not the best casters, honestly. Like Randy Bueller, I have some issues with, but if you don't even bother going and searching this up, it's not worth. But yeah, I agree. I like a nice professional cast, and I like a little bit of goof, but a very, very sprinkle amount. And I tell you what, that's why I really like Mr. Sam O'Byrne, because I think he knows his shit very well when it comes to this game, and I enjoyed the whole cast that I watched of Hartford. I did go back and watch some more Brendan, but particularly I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I wonder if I'm just like if I'm just like a boomer now or something, because like I like the stable tonal voice. Like I don't like any yell. Like I'm just like oh
come on. Yeah, that's
once they start screaming, I'm just like, come on, bro. I don't know. I'm definitely on the extreme, and like that is a complete personal preference. There's no objective of like, is it better or worse? It's just like for me, that's my weird preference. Is I like the old school kind of like ultra professional cast, and like that's what I like.
Let me set the scene for you. Pro Tour LA winning in. We've got two players playing on the cast. It comes down to a clash for a might that's going to force through an overpower. Lethal on the following turn. Slams it down. It's a 6 attack. No,
it's gotta be like a golf, like like. As he comes up to the green, it clashes on the stack. We flip. Oh, no. Like I mean, there is definitely some scenarios, but when it is forced in the totality of like an entire, it's just too much for me. Like I think it's got to be very tasteful. And I retired from casting, so I can give.
So it is tasteful now.
I can give my opinion on what I like and what I don't like.
Someone the other day told me they feel like we should banter more on the podcast. They feel like we bantered more in the early days, and we've pulled back from it a little bit.
Dude,
I don't know if that's true.
I actually thought about this. Sorry to detract from the Canada Cookout, but basically, on Twitch, there's like these big streamers, and they're all
the hot tub streamers.
No, not those. So like they're all like pretty insufferable. I'm sure some people like these people, but like Kai seen it. XQC, but there's one guy, new-ish called Jinxie, and he is a little piece of shit, but because he's very toxic, he's very, but actually pretty funny. Like I was like, flipped it on, and I was like, okay, this guy's this is actually entertaining. It's actually kind of funny, even though I disagree with pretty much everything this person is doing. And I was thinking back to our when we used to do gameplay. And I remember there was one time when I took the shit talking a little too hard, and I was like, I don't know, it's just like high rolling, and you're like, bro, stop.
You cracked me.
Yes. I finally did. I finally cracked you. Because I was getting let out of hand with it. But I was thinking, I was like, if we go back to gameplay, should we elevate the entertainment? Is what I was thinking. I was just wondering. I don't know if that is a better way to do it. Anyway, that was a long tangent.
Next question is from Toom Moot. Listening to the pro level talk of Fab is sometimes so strange because this is a world I'm so far away from. Like, to understand that people draft 4 to 5 times a day. So there are people out there who do this for a living. I mean, that is true, but it is a very, very small percentage. Like, do
this for a living is also a stretch. I think there's some people that are unemployed that do this, but do this for a living is a stretch. I mean,
they live and they do this. It might be more accurate.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that have a sustainable amount of money they made off Flesh and Blood.
100%.
Actually, it's probably two or three people.
There's a few. Yeah, there's a handful. It's small.
Yeah.
So don't feel bad. That's for sure.
It's far away for us as well. Like Hayden and I feel like we were really on the cutting edge when it came to like the amount of testing, games we were playing, effort we were putting in.
Monarch?
Yeah, we were really ahead of a lot of people just in terms of our discipline and our schedule and the rigidity. It's not the case anymore. I'm not saying people are infinitely far ahead of us in terms of gameplay and deck choices and metagame, but in terms of like the amount of games we were playing, it's got to be 5. Some people are 5x what we're at.
100%. Easy. Next question or next comment is from Adam Scoof 3068. One day someone's name is gonna get us and we're gonna get cancelled. So I'm always
you just gave them now they're definitely gonna do it.
They just say, "Oh, this is a bit of a comment section coming up on Bolton. I don't appreciate the Bolton hate." That's what Adam Scoof says. And then a great facade says, "As a former Warrior denier, y'all are probably sleeping on Bolton. Good episode." AVAUTV says, "Amazing how you guys Photoshop your faces into both heroes." Oh, that's different.
I commented back on that. I said, "You wound me."
If people didn't see the thumb last week, Brendan asked to have my face put on Victor. And then Kayo was also the thumbnail.
Do you remember my second request? Did you see that?
No. What was your second request? Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it said something a little ridiculous as an inside joke. Yeah, it was funny. Anyway, Bolton, to be honest, I haven't given it enough time.
Hey, top hated the battle hard.
I don't care about that, to be honest. What I care about is that I actually have not given it enough time or like enough attention to confidently say that it's ass. So some of that is hyperbolic when it comes to Bolton. We really don't have the data. Like nobody we know plays Bolton.
That's untrue. Tom Dowling was a Bolton main for a very long time, just so you know.
That checks out though.
He played it at Nationals to a top 16, like the first season of Nationals. He's played it he's like top road to Nationals and stuff with it. He thinks it's average in this format.
Okay. So we're probably sleeping on Bolton. I think you're right. Like we definitely are sleeping on it, but maybe that we still have to test it. To be completely honest. I'd be surprised if it was good in this format and it was well positioned into a format that's dominated by Kayo, just putting out insane math, like the math on the, like I would be surprised, but we'll definitely take a look at it. I mean, we're competing in the Pro Tour and there's card games are objective. You win or you lose. So we're open I'm happy to be wrong if that deck is busted and I have that deck and nobody else does. That'd be great, but I don't see it.
I know Travis, who some North American players might know, he's in our Discord, and he was saying he was surprised how low we were on Bolton. Look, I know that I'm like, same sort of thing. Not that I'm low on Bolton, and I do think it probably has some good matchups. I don't know. I fundamentally don't like the hero in terms of the way it operates, and I have issues with how you have to play an event with that hero, honestly, to have success. But, I mean, it's not like it's not powerful. Like, it got a lot of upgrades, and Lamina Ascension is still Lamina Ascension, so...
Yeah.
Anyway, Pale Fox 11. My week-long Kasai test has gone to this. Don't play Copper. It's a trap. Go build an army. It feels smoother. And now, I love me some Raiden Bolton. I said this person also wanted to get in on our Bolton.
That checks
it's not
out.
like it's not like we came into the pod and we're like, Bolton sucks.
Well,
Don't play Bolton. Hero shit.
I think I do. I think I have said that.
Maybe you
yes,
did.
I think I've said that.
But
too.
you're a contrarian.
I'm not. That's not contrarian. Contrarian is playing Bolton.
I'm aware.
I got triple Lumina at once. So bear with me, okay? I have
Edit calling as well.
Yep. Not great. Anyway, the copper stuff in regards to Kasai playing army.
Kasai.
That's I haven't tested Kasai yet, but from what I've heard, that's what I've heard is good.
Yeah, that's checking out to what we're hearing as well from within our testing group. John Gibson 476. Week 1 deck is Kano every time. I mean, we have to talk about Kano this week because more top 8s for Kano.
Yeah, I mean, just talk to Peter Budinsek. He had a really good time on Kano at the Age event.
Anyway, just playing that hero and just being like, well, all my opponent flip. Oh, nice, you have 3 Oasis in your sideboard for no reason. Yazam 2. It seems as though there's so much excitement in the game right now. Fun time to be playing. I mean, I agree. Also, I had some awesome stats over the weekend, Brendan. Oh, the other thing I did over the weekend is I judged a PTI event.
I know.
I hit judged a PTI event. That was, if people don't know this, I was the head judge for a PTI event this weekend. That was UPF Heavy Hitters Deathmatch draft. It was friggin' awesome, by the way. I'm kind of sad I didn't play.
You would have died instantly.
Immediately. That's why I didn't play. People would have immediately killed me. But the event itself, like the format is really cool. So if you haven't seen this, basically you have an 8-man draft like normal, and then you split into 2 4-person pods of UPF, and then you play till you get a winner of those 2 4-person pods, and then they play those 2 winner of the 4-person pod play each other to win the total pod. And so we had 6 pods, so the 6 winners went into the top 8, and then 2 of the finalists also got into, they got the last 2 spots into this top 8, and then did the same thing again, basically. So you mix up playing UPF, but you also get to play a little bit of 1v1. And honestly, listening, I had to make it really clear at the start of the event, you cannot bribe people in Flesh and Blood. Just to be really clear. No, but people are doing some influencing. I'll tell you what, there was a lot of discussion going on. There's one particular player who was just running the table. They made it all the way to, I think, they were the last person knocked out in their 4-person pod before the grand final. And they were just running the table on just politics, I'll tell you what.
I hate, this is not in regards to is UPF bad or good? But for me personally, as a player of games, I don't like politics in games.
I hate it. I hate it.
I hate it so much. I just don't. It's not for me. I don't know. It's weird because that's the thing is UPF is not, to an extent, it's not even a card game. It's I don't even think that UPF and Flesh and Blood are even adjacent. They're wildly different games. And I know that there's crossover between people that play UPF and people that play 1v1 Flesh and Blood. But for me, it's there isn't something that could be farther away from Flesh and Blood. Because I don't like politics in games. I don't like politics in general, but especially in games.
It was cool though, and people had a lot of fun, which is great. And people still, and the heavy hitters format is honestly, this is just the best for UPF. I think it works really well. There's so many cool interactions.
Yeah, I heard there was somebody at that thing. It was he was telling people he couldn't about the math of he could or could not kill them, and then he would just kill them and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know."
This is the politics guy. This is the guy I was telling you about. Who was he's like, oh, we're warrior buddies. We're in this together. And he, it's I'm just coming in for 3 because I just need to continue to chip damage. So I keep you on an even playing field with me. You don't need to defend this. And they're like, okay. And then he just plays the attack reaction to kill the player. It was
UPF
great.
is an exercise in moral relativity, I guess.
Yeah. Also, I saw some comments. People were like, "Why is there a PTI for this event?" And okay, I get it, but honestly, it's a PTI.
You can buy PTIs. Who cares if they put them up?
You can buy PTIs. Yeah, it's cool. There was so many new players. I think there was 5 players who had never played a draft event before. There was 3 brand new players at the event. It was cool. It was great. All right. Main topic.
Yeah, I've been thinking about PvE a little bit. By the way.
I don't want to hear it.
I think.
Save it. You can save it.
Okay.
Save it. Save it for an episode where we do a mailbag or a PV or something. We've got to get into the main topic.
All
right, part one, main topic. I want to talk about draft a little bit. I want to talk draft preferences a little bit. I just want, people are heading into Road to Nationals this weekend. What I want this main topic to be, there's two parts to this main topic, Brendan. I want this to be a little bit of a preview for Road to Nationals season that starts this weekend and kind of just some of our bits of advice. We're going to talk meta and where we'd end up. I'm going to ask you the infamous question that I'm going to ask you honestly for the next 5 weeks, which is what deck would you play this weekend? And we'll see if that changes over the next 5 weeks. But then the other thing is just kind of some setup for this weekend. So let's start with draft. What are you thinking about draft overall? Do you have any particular, are you heading to Road to Nationals this weekend?
No.
I don't know. But if you are, and it's draft, what are your thoughts? How are you approaching it?
So I'm really torn on draft right now because there's two very different schools of thought that are, I believe in both of them and they're both very adamant, which is like, is this a synergistic format or is this a 3-block format? And both have sort of waxed and waned in terms of their hierarchy on the pole of like what is correct. And they keep I keep running into situations where it's like, oh, it's a synergistic format. This person, they look at this deck, they pull off these big turns and they kill their opponent. It doesn't matter how many 3 blocks they have. And then I see the opposite. It's like, oh, this is a pure math fatigue based format, or fatigue by damage like that, basically a bright lights kind of format. And I just don't know which one is correct at this point. It's really waxed and waned and it's in flux. So right now I'm pretty disoriented when it comes to the draft format. If it was me and I was going to a Road to Nationals and I really needed to win this weekend, I would probably implement a more attrition based strategy unless I had like some insane, like my seat was insane for, some synergistic brute deck or something like that. Yeah, I'd probably opt for an attrition-based strategy because I think that people are a bit underprepared to face those strategies right now.
Yeah. Okay. Here's something. What if it's both? What if both realities are true? Because I actually think that's where I am right now.
Well, yeah,
I think both real.
I think that, yeah, but I don't think it's 50-50, right? Like there's going to be one that's like 60 and the other one's going to be 40. Like nothing is split halfway. And I think one is going to be a bit better than the other, at least in terms of like a blanket approach. So I do think that it's a mix. Even in Bright Lights, I felt like there was a mix of that. Like there was. Like if you saw Yuki play on stream at World Championships, she played a very non-attrition based deck, a very setup based deck. It exists, but it's like how much of the format
that was way more narrow though in that format.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really the question of like how narrow is it to not build an attrition based deck in Bright Lights? In Heavy Hitters.
In Heavy Hitters. I think in Bright Lights, I do agree with you. It was like, can you be the outlier? Yeah, probably, but it's probably one per pod max. When I say max, I mean maximum. I think, when you say it's not 50-50, I agree, but I also think it's unknown what percentage it is. And I think that's because it's meta-based. And what I mean by that is that I think whether the format is more attrition based, 3 blocks are great, you play pure math value game versus you play a synergy based where you try and have these big turns and do what your deck wants to do and punish your opponent for having dead cards effectively because they have all these 3 blocks that they can't use. I think these two competing strategies, it's a meta, and I think it's going to shift, and it's honestly going to depend on your pod is where I'm at right now as to how many people try and draft a more attrition-based strategy, how many people try and draft synergy, what heroes they're drafting, what cards they start with and open. And I'm going to position myself, I think this is going to be really difficult, and I think it's going to be hard to do, but I'm going to try and position myself to be able to play both those strategies. I think it's really going to depend on the signals I get at the table, what people are passing me, and what people are prioritizing and taking, to be honest. Like, if I'm at a table with some players who are focused on 3-block strategy and they're passing like red wild rides, like 5th and 6th pick, and I'm already improved, then you've made my decision for me. I'm on a more synergistic damage based plan. If I get a bunch of like really mid to late good 3 blocks in blue, for instance, and resources, late rally the rear guard blue or whatever, like, okay, you've made my decision for me. I think that's kind of where I'm at a little bit. And so cards that enable me to be open to both those kind of overarching archetypes when it comes to Heavy Hitters draft, not even talking about hero class or then archetype within those, then now some of those cards are going to keep me up to both. I'm more interested in, honestly. There's some cards that are really starting to rise in stock for me because of that.
So one thing that I'd probably implement if I went to Road to Nationals, which I'm not, mainly also because I'm going to Austin for the half marathon, but I would probably try to draft Guardian. I think Guardian is heavily underdrafted. It's almost like, especially after the data in regards to hard forward and the narratives that were talked about there, I think people think the Guardian is like almost strictly worse than some of the other classes. And I think the Guardian is quite powerful, especially when it's a bit open. I just don't want to be like the third Guardian at any time, especially not the fourth. But Guardian reminds me a lot of Guardian in this format, specifically like Betsy.
He's going to say Lixie.
Yeah.
He's going to say Tall Ice Lixie.
That's what it reminds me of. It really does. It really does.
Knew it.
Do you agree with that at all?
Yeah, I think that is an archetype within Betsy. I think Betsy actually has two archetypes, honestly. But yeah, I think that is an archetype.
I wouldn't play the pump like it's just an attrition based Betsy deck, but it's really good on rate attrition because you have you have like the best access to 3 blocks, but then you also have the 3 for 7s and things like that. Like 2 card 7. It's just a really good thing to do in limited.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is. The problem in this format is like some of these 2 card 7s block for 2. And you can punish your opponent by giving them effective IP penalties if their deck is just all this because you have set up turns, you take turns off, and they go, okay, I guess I come back with a 3 for 7. You know, it's hand extenders and chain extenders, which are typically cards that enable you to play out your full hand with extra action points or without extra action points, are really good in this format. I think, especially the ones that block 3. Because you can do the best of both worlds. And cards I mean by that are like Bonebreaker Bellow, I think is a really undervalued card in Brute, for instance, for that reason. People think about it as like, oh, it's a Reinhardt card and it does this. Or no, I mean, it's just a chain extender that blocks 3 and has some value if I need it to. On a 3-card hand, I can make it, worth 9.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's a decent 3-card trade.
Yeah.
But yeah. What else when it comes to limited? You're thinking you'd lean towards Guardian. Mm-hmm. You think you'd lean towards an attrition base for week 1. Mm-hmm. What I really like about this format is I think there is a meta in heavy hitters, and I don't think we've necessarily had that before outside of people force Fi, so it's correct to position yourself in Droma and Icelander if you know how to play those, or you should focus on them or whatever. This actually feels like there's a lot. Cards are really important, and the value of like the block value is really important relative to the effect, relative to your synergy, relative to kind of the overall game plan. And I really like that because the weapons, every hero has a weapon, but the weapons aren't particularly strong, and I think that's a big part of that reason. So it's not, when games come down to fatigue, it's not fatigue, it's like fatigue by damage, which is much more exciting. So I don't know, what would I do? I think my preference right now is to just stay open a little bit through picks 5 to 6. I know there's people who now don't want to stay open. They want to like send a signal and like get into heroes early. That's another meta aspect as well, to be honest. I know our group's been talking about that. But I like to stay open at the moment around to picks 5 to 6. I like to take like 2 to 3 hybrid cards in the first 6 picks or generics, preferably 3, honestly. Maybe 1 piece of generic equipment, and then like I'll hedge on like 2 class cards max, ideally, maybe 3 within the first 7 picks, and then by pick 8, like I am committing, and I don't really pivot. I just don't think you can pivot efficiently in this format after pick 8.
Bro, so I don't think you can pivot in Flesh and Blood, to be honest.
I think you can after, like, if you commit, say, pick 2 or something, and by pick 5 you're like, I have to be out of this, here's an open lane. I think you can pivot then, but after that I honestly don't think you can.
Yeah, I don't think it's 100% of the time, but I do think it is a vast majority of the time that if you pivot in Flesh and Blood, you made an incorrect decision. Like you're like, especially if you're looking to 3-0 or something like that. I just don't think it's a good strategy in Flesh and Blood to pivot.
You can get really punished, honestly. You can get super punished for it.
Yeah. And I think that the payoff is also like, I mean, I guess if you have like the perfect payoff, you pivot perfectly, nobody else is in that hero, like you can end up with a good deck. But I think most of the time, even if you're like, okay, I pivoted into the hero where there was only one other person drafting it, because you pivoted, you still end up with a shit deck or like a mid deck. I don't know. I just like rather force at this point. Like I just feel like, I don't know, forcing is a weird word because it means different things to different people. But I would describe your strategy as like a version of forcing in a sense. Like I stay open for like generics, hybrid cards, maybe some equipment in the first 1 to 5 picks, and then it's like I'm happy to aggressively pick good cards in a hero and start cutting if I think that I'm in a pod that would respect that. Because if I think that there's no rhyme or reason, and if I hard cut something, everybody's still going to ape into Brute because I think it's the best hero, then I probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I think forcing in its tradition is like going in with I'm drafting this hero or class mindset and the old I only look at 5 cards when I draft.
Shit was effective. That was an effective strategy.
And then I think there's a kind of, there's a I'm going to send a signal early and cut kind of next standpoint to it. Brendan's just destroying his office. All right. Anything else you want to say about draft, or should we talk some Classic Constructed ahead of Road to Nationals? My kind of last thing on draft is I think, find a lane that's going to work for you. Find a strategy. I think if you try and listen to everything that everyone's got to say and try and do everything, you're just going to end up in a mess a lot of the time. Like, you've got to have a strategy in this format. That's for sure.
My strategy for the Pro Tour is to not be a master of draft. I'm 100% taking the 80-20 line. I want to put in the minimum amount of effort to be proficient so that I can give myself room to get lucky.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I don't want to do 100, 200 drafts. Like, I don't. And I respect people that are doing that, because some of those people are also giving me really good information that helps me be a lazy piece of shit and not do that many drafts. But my strategy is I'm really hoping that some of the in-person testing will carry a lot of my drafting experience here, to be honest. I feel like right now I'd feel quite underprepared for the Pro Tour if it was tomorrow for drafting.
Look, it's kind of interesting because I'm not going to do 100 drafts. I have to look at my log. I think I'm about 8 or 10 in now, something. And I feel really good about this format, honestly. Like, I think I'm going to feel good getting to about 25, 30 drafts.
I think
just got to make them impactful.
I think Bright Lights hurt my confidence a bit when it comes to limited, to be honest.
That set sucked. Honestly, now reflecting and playing a lot of heavy hitters, I've really enjoyed it. Bright Light's draft sucked, honestly.
Yeah. I was hesitant to say that because I was sort of weighing up. It's like, oh, am I just jaded at this point?
No,
like, am I just...
It honestly sucked.
I was fucking miserable in Barcelona. Because we're also drafting...
Try playing the Worlds, bro.
But like, man, we were just drafting back to back to back with some of the best players in the world, and it was just these attrition slogs. And I was like, bro. Yeah, except when we had Flake in our pod, then you got that freebie. Dude, Flakes.
That's what I was thinking when you were in my pod,
bro. You didn't play me. But Flakes. Funny story from Barcelona. I don't know if it's been told in the pod, but basically, Majin, I think he was like, I don't know if he was 3-0 or 2-0. He finished his draft, but then I was like, I had to leave or something, and I was like, oh, no, or was Yost? Someone. It was Peter. It's like, oh, play Brendan's deck. He has to leave. And I was like, I said it was really good. I said my deck was really good. So they handed Peter the wrong deck. They handed him Flake's deck, and he was like so confused. He was so confused. Like, he was going through this existential crisis. He was like, this is a good deck? Like, what the fuck?
They do this on purpose? They do it on purpose?
No, they did it on accident. And he played the whole game and just got absolutely wrecked. And he was like, dude, that deck was so ass. I'm like, what do you mean? It was great. It was great. I had like so many junkyard dogs. And he's like, dude, this deck had no junkyard dogs. What are you talking about? This is Flake's deck.
You were there thinking Peter's going, ooh, and no.
Yeah, Flake didn't value he didn't really value the 3 blocks in that format, I'll say that. He took a lot of items.
Hey, all right, let's talk Class Constructed ahead of Road to Nationals kicking off this weekend. Part 2 to this main topic. Does Prism have a new place in this meta? I want to talk battle hardened. 100-something odd players, I think it was, in Liverpool for this battle hardened on day 2 of the calling this past weekend. And I want to start by just talking about the meta a little bit from a, as Brendan would say, 10,000 foot view, and compare it a little bit to Hartford.
You have to extend that altitude, make it a 20,000 foot view.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I got a top view. Do you know the height of Mount Everest, by the way? It's really high. I didn't realize.
What the fuck? Where did that go?
Well, I was looking at mountains the other day, and like I was like, oh, some mountains are pretty high, but Everest is like significking higher. Yeah. Like, I didn't realize just quite how high Everest is.
Standard Hayden afternoon, just having his fucking Vegemite, looking, just checking out the mountains on the internet. Wonder what the meters are on old Mount Everest.
Well, it was actually K2 I was looking at, but then anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we've got to get into this. The battle hardened meta last weekend in Liverpool. Kayo was the most represented deck, followed by Bravo, followed by Kasai, then Dash and Azalea. So that was your top 5 of the weekend. And then your second, like your next 5 in the 10 was Kano, Levia, Dromai. Dromai went from number 1 the following week to number 8 this week. Victor and Bolton. So just quickly to compare that kind of the top 5 last week in Hartford to Liverpool this past weekend. Dromai was the number 1 played, which was 8 in Liverpool. Victor was number 2 played, which was 9 in Liverpool. Leviah was number 3 played, which was 7 in Liverpool. Azalea was number 4 played, which was 5 in Liverpool. And then Bravo was number 5 played, which was 2 in Liverpool. And, obviously Kayo makes sense spiking, right? Kayo wins the event. That deck list is from Yuki and Nia has been out quite significantly. The list is obviously very good. People are going to move to and play it, right? So it makes sense. Kayo number 1. Bravo number 2, I think, people have obviously decided to not play Victor after a really poor showing the following weekend, and Bravo putting 2 decks in top 8 in Hartford, and that makes sense. And then Kasai is this kind of new entity, right? It didn't see a bunch of play in, was like number 7 in Hartford, but we saw it have a reasonable performance in top 8, and then Dash also, kind of, I think, rising up a little bit from where it was the week prior, and then Azalea just kind of sitting around the same spot. I think the big one is Dromai obviously dropping off so much, and then Kano actually was actually a lot more represented than in Hartford as well.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I don't know.
Top line thoughts?
I don't know where 11 games came from. That's wild. I talked about my biggest. I would love for someone to calibrate me on why Bravo is so highly represented in this metagame. Because, I guess as Dromai fades out a bit, Bravo is, people just have wildly different opinions. I think Bravo's matchup in Dromai is not good. I really don't. But there are people that swear that it's, fantastic. And I think those people are crazy.
I think it's better with the new, the extra 6 attacks, the new 3.
For sure.
Blue.
It's actually, it's a big difference, to be honest. I've noticed it with Victor. But yeah. I don't know. I think do you
want to talk top 8?
Sure. Top 8. Go for it.
Because you asked the question, right? Why Bravo is so represented. So in Hartford, the previous week, we saw 2 Bravos make top 8, right? Which I think is quite interesting. 3 Brutes in total, 2 KO and Leviah. And then this week, we see another 2 Bravos make top 8. We see 2 Dashes make top 8 after one the week prior. Another Kano top 8 after a Kano the week prior as well. But then no Brutes in this top 8. Instead, you have Bolton and Azuri and a Prism. Quite interesting. So the mainstays over the last 2 weeks have been Bravo, Dash, and Kano.
Yeah, no Brutes is actually fascinating. That's pretty wild for a deck like KO. Because that deck is...
Do people work it out?
Pretty
Do people work out how to beat KO?
Maybe. I would welcome that, because that is a question that we're trying to work through right now, and it's been tough. The biggest takeaway for me here is just decks to try out. The meta is going to be in flux. It's going to be wild. This is a battle hard meta versus, I believe, another battle hard meta. So I don't put insane weight on the actual top 8 as this is super indicative of a metagame. But I do need to try out these other lists. I do need to try out these other heroes. I'm loading up Prism immediately when we get off this podcast. I might convince somebody else that I know and trust to play Bolton, and then give me feedback on how good that deck is. And then I'll have to look at this Bravo deck, I guess, and play it into KO. If Bravo's significantly better than Victor in the KO, maybe. But that would
I think yes, honestly.
Significantly, so much heavy lifting done off of Crippling Crush. It's a relevant card, but
a reasonable amount of heavy lifting done off it, I think. But then the other piece of it as well is that Bravo can. So there's the kind of, you don't have to side out these block cards, so your main deck is probably just a bit better set up as well, I think. But then also the thing that Bravo can do is if you trade value, maybe you survive a Cast Bones turn or whatever, maybe KO gets a good start, you stabilize it, then you can honestly just chain on hits. If you land a Spinal Crush, a Crippling Crush. Even something like Choke Slam is good against them, right? Turns off their Blood Rush Bellows turns off their Might tokens, things like that. Those are good. So if you can chain a couple of those attacks, they don't defend that well, honestly. They can play a couple of defense reactions, and at that point they're also diluting their deck, so their Cast Bones are worse. I do think Bravo is set up a lot better to beat KO. I do believe that.
I'll have to test it out. The big
one way to find out.
Yeah, that's how you know we're actually preparing for the Pro Tour. Is there's no more just throwing statements out Bravo sucks. Okay, we'll try it out, because that's the competitor mindset. It's I'm literally willing for anything. I just want to find the best deck at this point that is not KO. I don't want to play KO mirrors. I don't.
Okay. So we talked about Kayo, number one represented last week, didn't convert into top 8, but like you say, that's. I think that what that potentially shows to me is that people came prepared. People came prepared to beat Kayo, which makes sense. That cool. Okay, Bravo. We've talked about that. 2 weeks of consistent kind of results, and potentially a good pick to combat Kayo. That might be the reason for the second place. What about Kasai? Where does Kasai fit into this? Because I've heard Kasai's Kayo matchup is not that great. It's kind of okay. So I don't know. I've not heard like, oh, everyone's like, Kasai has amazing matchups. Everyone just, from what I'm hearing, it's like, yeah, Kasai's solid.
That's what I've heard as well. I wish I had more information than you on Kasai. Like, I really don't at this point. Like, I've been focusing on three major pillars of the format, which is Kayo, Dramai, and Victor. And there's obviously more pillars after these top 8s. So I just need to expand the testing a bit to try out some of these other decks that, I mean, it's not that we weren't considering them. It's just like they weren't in that immediate, like, we have to answer this question before we move forward with anything. And I don't believe that Kasai, Bravo, and fucking Kayo we're in that conversation quite yet. But now it's like, okay, we need to calibrate. And of course, Prism too. Like, I mean, Prism won the entire thing, which is wild. You said we're going to get back to it. Let's get back to it.
I was saving the best for last. How
is Prism's matchup into Brute?
Can I talk one thing first?
Yeah.
One thing first, which is you talked about a pillar of the format being Dramai. Has that pillar well and truly crumbled?
No, I don't think so. Because I feel like Dramai to an extent is going to have a massive effect on the metagame, whether it is represented or not. I mean, maybe Kayo just overshadows all of that and Dramai just immediately becomes not real because Kayo is so popular. But if Kayo is truly a beatable deck and Kayo starts to fade out of the format, I think Dramai is totally an option.
Yeah. Okay, we can talk about the one thing, sorry, just quickly. I keep getting surprised at the lack of Fi at these events. 5 Fi in this event.
I mean, it can be great versus Bravo.
It can be. It definitely can be.
I don't know. Maybe I'm outdated, but when I played Bravo into Fi, it was almost unlosable.
They playing Crush the Week and stuff though back then.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I had some of those, but those cards weren't that nuts in my deck. I had Crush the Week and Chokeslam, I believe.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a hero where you can actually back to back dominate them? It's Fi, because Fi literally can't do shit if you dominate them with some sort of relevant on hit effect. Where it's okay, I Spinal KO Bare Fangs, I Spinal KO Swing Big like that, and then it's okay, I Spinal Fi 0 for 4. It's way way different. Yeah,
sick bullet.
I just feel Fi is actually much more. It has a much harder time at a Bravo. Potentially,
yeah. I mean, I think people can sit up for it. I just look. I'm not a big Fi fan. I don't want to be playing Fi, but I'm just surprised that kind of as the aggro decks. What are the aggro decks in this format? Is it just Kasai and Azalea to an extent? The aggro decks are these kind of can play mid range. They're aggro to mid range as opposed to aggro. Azalea, Dash, Kasai, Kayo. These are all aggro mid-range builds as opposed to pure aggro. Anyway, okay, let's talk Prism then. It was the fourth. Well, first of all, one Rhinar. Come on, guys, what the heck? Same number of Vincets and Riptides and Arachnids.
Kayo is just better.
Come on, man. I don't necessarily disagree, but I also don't agree. Prism, 4 copies, 1 goes to top 8, winner.
Yeah,
crazy.
How's the Brute matchup?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. But I can't. So I'm looking at this list. I put the list in the notes if you haven't seen it, Brendan. But so we've seen Rob's list. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how he's beating Brute looking at this list. I at a guess, he's just powering through, just setting up figments and able to just choke them on action points and win that way. He has the aura package, right? So I'm guessing that's how Rob was doing it. Look, he didn't have to beat a Brute in top 8, so we didn't get to hear much about it. But I mean, yeah, I'd be interested if anyone's kind of test this matchup, how they're approaching the Brute matchup. But look, honestly, there's not, Kayo, yes, number 1 played deck, and there was a reasonable amount of Leviathan, but there's no Rhinar. And if you feel you're really good into, say because of the aura package, you feel really good into Bravo, for instance, you feel good into Kasai because they can't play poppers. Dash has been traditionally an okay matchup for you. Kano, probably a pretty good matchup for you. Like, you've dodged Dramai and the Brutes. Like, is the rest of the field just good for you? Like, that's kind of what I was thinking about Prism last week, and I was saying, don't worry about Dramai. Maybe Prism's the deck to take to Road to Nationals.
So someone said that they want the banter to come back in the pod. I have some.
Yeah.
Rhinar is not a real deck.
Why are we talking about Prism now?
I thought you said Rhinar, but Rhinar is just not. It's not a real deck. Like it's not as good as Kayo. Like Kayo's just better, and Rhinar just doesn't exist. Like I'm less confused.
We can talk about this if you want.
I'm less confused.
I disagree.
I'm less confused why there were so few Rhinar. I'm more confused why there was one Rhinar and not 20 KOs.
Dude, I've seen these Rhinar lists floating around. Honestly, I think they're pretty trash. Like, I think people are building Rhinar.
But you sound like a Dramai. You sound like this is Dramai level copium. When it's like, bro, Dramai loses, and they're like, bro. And then the Dramai player's like, their list doesn't look like my list. It's just like,
I mean, to be fair, I did say the same thing, and then I top 4'd Nationals, and then Nick made the finals for Taiwan calling. So, don't know. Last time I said that, I can definitely back it up. I don't know. Like, I think. Look, Kayo is really strong. Cast Bones is a ridiculous card. Like, that card is silly, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that because of the deck building restraints of Kayo and what that means defensively, like, I just think Kayo's narrower. Like, I think Rhinar has more avenues. I think it's harder to understand what you want to do with Rhinar in a particular metagame. But Rhinar got a ton of ridiculous upgrades. Like, actually got a lot of upgrades, like significantly more than Leviathan, I think. Agility is a massive upgrade for Rhinar.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Prism.
I honestly, like, when it comes to Prism, I mean, there's a few things we have to circle back on, like, next week's pod, the week after that, which is like Prism, Kasai, yes. Bolton. These are heroes that have been completely irrelevant in the Flesh and Blood metagame, and I don't have a lot of experience with them. I can tell you what I think, but it would be much better if we just revisit it in a week or two when I actually have experience playing heroes. Because, like, right now, yeah, I have to see. Like, it's like, how did Rob beat the Brutes? I don't know.
He might not have got pitted.
I know that too. But it's like, I don't know. I legitimately don't know. I just have to at this point. It's cool. It is both. It is frustrating. Not frustrating. Frustrating is not the word. But as a competitor, with 5 weeks away from the Pro Tour, it's like, oh shit, there's all these other decks. But in terms of like a metagame, it's really cool. There's like all these super, what used to be extremely irrelevant heroes and decks now being very, very relevant. And we have to test them when we need to consider them when looking at Pro Tour LA. That's a good thing. I'm sure Brian Gottlieb is, pouring out the champagne right now. Listen to this.
He's frothing.
He's got a red panty night. Is that what McGregor said?
Can you do it in the accent?
No.
All right. We're going to leave the pod off, the main topic off with this. So, okay, firstly, we'll come back to this. We're going to be talking about this evolution of the meta every week because, honestly, this is one of the most interesting evolutions of meta games I think we've seen in Flesh and Blood's history because there's so many heroes. I said this to you the other week. Do you know how many heroes there are in Classic Constructed and Blitz right now? There's over 20 in Classic Constructed, which is insane.
I miss the good old days when there was 4 heroes in the Classic Constructed format. That was when the game was good.
Do you mean 3?
What? No, you were playing Rhinar at the first.
Yeah, I know. No. Well, I didn't go to the first calling.
Oh, story time real quick.
I would have been.
Story time real quick, because at the first calling, not a lot of people were playing Rhinar, but Rhinar was a deck that everybody was scared of. And old mate Isaac Olsen, calling champion Isaac Olsen, shows up on Rhinar. Fear enters everyone's hearts. Round 1. Sasha pairs into him. It couldn't be any more unlucky. The fatigue deck pairs into the Rhinar deck. It's like, we just were not meant to, this was not meant to be. Tournament was not ours. Bad variance. Well, the match is actually played out, and Isaac Olsen loses with Sasha on more life than he started with. That's your Rhinar history.
I believe that's because Isaac decided to present like 70 cards and thought he was going to fatigue the ninja.
Yeah, I don't think he had Drunk Vitality in his deck either.
Come on, Isaac.
I really want Isaac to come back to Flesh and Blood so we can put him.
He played.
I know, but I want to put him on stream again because you want to talk about a stream curse. Round 1.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was bad.
He didn't get a stream match at Queenstown, but he lost his winners for top 8. He was playing for top 8 in the last round at Queenstown. Okay, we'll revisit the meta each week. It's going to be unfolding. It's going to be very interesting. but that leads me to my question, because Road to Nationals is going to give us a bunch of data this weekend. But Brendan, you're on your way to Road to Nationals this weekend. The same question that I'm going to ask every week: what deck are you playing and why this weekend?
I play Victor. I still think, I mean, maybe somebody can convince me to put the Victor cards into a Bravo shell, but I think Victor's probably just good enough. At a Road to Nationals, it's really, really consistent. There probably wouldn't be a lot of Dramai. I don't think KO's a great matchup, but I think that it's winnable. So, yeah, Victor seems fine. I know a lot of people think that Victor has a really bad matchup in the Bravo. I don't think so. I think it immediately appears that way at first, but I think that Victor can absolutely win that matchup.
Fair enough.
What are you playing? You playing Reiner?
I mean, probably, but if the pick I would potentially call out to people for this first weekend, I think it's Dash. I think there's a lot of Rise of Guardian. I think people are going to pick up Bravo to potentially try and pick on KOs, and I also think Dash has a reasonable matchup into KO, and as well as Kasai, who was like the third most played deck last weekend. So I think Dash is at Kano as well, which Kano is definitely on the rise. Dash is nicely positioned for that matchup. So I think, honestly, I'd be looking at Dash. I think that's a particularly good first week pick.
Yeah, I haven't played Dash since Crucible of War. It's been a while.
Have you not? I feel like you played it some other, maybe not.
Maybe like
maybe
some
not.
Boost, like I don't know, like
I
maybe in a
can't even
game.
remember. I actually want to think
videos.
maybe not.
Yeah,
maybe not. Honestly,
it's been a while.
I think I've played the Dash side every time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode 149. We're closing in on the 3 mark, Brendan. That's crazy. We're almost at the 156, the big 156. You want to take us out?
Yep. If you're listening to this podcast, you enjoy it, the number one thing you can do is leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening. It's the number one thing you can do to help us out, and we read every single review. So leave us one if you've been listening for a while. Twitter's at Brendan APG, Fen_Dale. A special thank you to all of the Arsenal Pass patrons. We got deck techs coming soon. Working our hardest to find the broken decks for PTLA so we can get them out to help you all out as well. Check out the limited time only episode that went up with Yuha. We're really excited to have him come do content under the Arsenal Pass umbrella. I'm excited so that I can have good content to help prepare for PTLA without having to do 100 drafts. But thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you next week.